Okay, if you already know how to access the comments and feedback that I provide you on your thought primers when they're returned to you, you can stop watching this video because that's all I'm going to go over here. When you turn in your thought primers to me, I read every single word you write, top to bottom, because I want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do in the ways you need to do it in order to be successful in the course. And you know that when your thought primers get returned to you, there's a score of 100%, 50%, or the dreaded 0%. Now, regardless of what the score is that you earned, I will always provide you some feedback that is really important for you to read. If you get 100%, my feedback may be something like, hey, the methodology that you're using to solve these problems is really effective and it's something you want to keep doing as we go down the road. Or maybe it'll be something like, hey, this is a really creative way of doing it. It works. I hadn't thought of it that way, of doing it that way. Or maybe you got 100% and my comment back to you is like, hey, this strategy that you're using, it works. It's perfectly fine if you're comfortable using it. Here's an alternative way of doing it that may be a little bit more reliable, maybe more efficient, a little less work on your part or whatever. But if you get 50% or 0%, that's when you're really going to want to make sure that you go in and look at my comments, because I'm going to be identifying which of the problems you didn't get correct. And I'm going to be describing for you things to think about as you reapproach those problems, or maybe new ways of approaching those problems. So if you get a 50% or a 0%, that means that something went wonky in your self-corrected problems. What's common there is that folks skip a section and they don't do all the self-corrected problems that they're supposed to. They fail to include those when they submit them to me. More common is you'll get 50% because there's something going weird with your instructor corrected problem. So what you want to do then is you want to go into that thought primer that's been returned to you and look really carefully at my comments so that you can reconsider those problems that you haven't gotten correct yet, redo them in light of my feedback back to you, and resubmit them as many times as you need to until you get 100%. So how do you get this feedback from me? Whenever a thought primer gets returned to you, you're going to see a little, I think it's in red, a little number appear here next to grades in Canvas. And the number will correspond with, I think, how many assignments have been returned to you graded. So you can just click right on grades. And that'll take you to all of the assignments that you're either missing, like I'm missing here because I'm a bad student and I've missed 3 out of my 4 assignments, or you're going to see assignments that have been returned to you graded, and they'll usually have a little blue dot here on the left-hand side saying like, hey, you haven't checked this thing out yet. This is a newly returned assignment to you. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can get in and look at this feedback, and I'm going to show you the best way to do it here. So you can see on this one, I only got 50%. So that means something went loopy either with my self-corrected problems or my instructor corrected problems. And so I'm going to click right on this link here, and that's going to take me back to the work that I submitted. It would appear right here in this window. And you can see over here on the right-hand side are my comments back to you. And in that window, I might be saying something to you like, hey, look at 4.4 problem number 6 and think really carefully about, the predicate term and make sure it's countable. I can't tell you how many times I've had to write that. Make sure your predicate term is countable, and you'll go like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I made that mistake again. I know how to correct that. And so you go in and you correct it, and look, you have this resubmit assignment button. And so you'll just click that button and you'll upload your corrected work, and it comes to me and I get a notice saying like, hey, so-and-so has resubmitted an assignment for your evaluation. And I'm like, boss, I'm going in there and I'm going to look at that. And if it has been corrected, I'll give you 100% and say something to you like, hey, nice job, or you're right on target, something like that. But maybe you haven't yet gotten it completely correct, in which case it's going to be returned to you with the same score and more feedback on this left-hand side of the screen. Okay. Now, sometimes I may ask you questions, and it's perfectly appropriate for you to respond to those questions by clicking on the add a comment. And that way, when it comes back to me, I can see your comments or your questions. It's really common for students to pose questions here and say like, hey, did I do this problem the right way? This is what I'm thinking. And they'll explain some of their rationale. Now, one thing that's really important to keep in mind is that when you resubmit work that you want to have reevaluated, you really want to do so by using this resubmit assignment button, because that sends a signal to me in my Canvas saying that you have resubmitted something for me to look at. If you put your corrections in the add a comment window, I get no notification that you have submitted something new to me. Okay, so it makes it easier for me to miss your corrections. So the best way for you to resubmit corrected work is by clicking that resubmit assignment button and then uploading your corrected work. And then you can put a little note in there if you want to me, and I'll get a notification that you've resubmitted your assignment. And when I go in, I'll see your comment to me. All right. Fantabulous. I think that's all I want to say.